Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. We are very, very excited to welcome you guys this morning. We have we have Cathy, we have Robert, we have Sheila, we have Sophie. Even though Sophie's on mute, she's the technicality part in the background. But the rest of these wonderful people are gonna be talking to us this morning or this afternoon, excuse me, about Seniors for Climate Action. It's very, very important. I think that we don't talk about this enough. So I just, before we get started, a few housekeeping rules here. So we do have the chat box. We have the Q&A. So if you are watching and you want to get involved in this conversation, anything that you want to bring to our attention, please put it in the chat box, put it in the Q&A. I will be monitoring. Sophie's here to take care of me in case I miss something in the chat box. And we would love to include everybody in the conversation. We want you guys included as much as possible because we want to interact with you during this webinar. So, technically webinars they can be kind of quiet places where you just kind of watch and passively take part in. But we want to hear you guys. So if you have any comments, any questions, anything that you want to bring to our attention, please type it in that chat box and we'll get started here. So let's start in a good way, and we're going to have Cathy, our fearless leader this afternoon, do our land acknowledgement.
Well, hello there. So I am Métis, and I am now on a journey to learn what it means to be Métis in this very modern world. And I'm also a citizen of the Otipemisiwak Métis government. And one of the things I've been doing is getting involved with their environment and climate change group. And this image that I'm sharing with you today is a graphic that was created from an eco grief, eco anxiety healing circle. And so this was something the Métis Association sponsored. And what we did is a group of us shared stories. We shared stories of grief, of hope, and we received teachings which reaffirmed our strong connections to the land. And it did inspire us to take action. So, one of the things I learned was about radical acceptance. And what that means is that I need to accept what I can't control. And the way that I applied this teaching is that I live in the inner city of Calgary, and there's so much development. And when they demolish a house, they knock down big trees, and that just hurts my soul. So what I have learned to do is accept that. I can't change it because, we need this development. So what I've learned to do is move on from that and take action. Now I help plant mini forests. Rob is going to tell you a whole lot more about that. And so I love that the Métis have provided a very safe place for me to explore these sometimes complex emotions. But I also want to acknowledge that in Calgary, we have other nations and peoples that share the land with us. I really like the Calgary Public Library land acknowledgement. So I'm going to share that one with you today. With gratitude, mutual respect, and reciprocity, we acknowledge the ancestral home, culture, and oral teachings of the Treaty 7 signatories. And that includes the Siksika Nation, the Piikani, the Kainai Nation, the Yethka Stony Nakoti Nation, and that consists of the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney bands, and the Tsuut'ina Nation, and we can't forget the Otipemisiwak. So we respect all people who share, who celebrate, and care for the Treaty 7 territory of Southern Alberta, and we honor the original caretakers of the land. And that reminds us of the ongoing histories that precede us. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Cathy. That was wonderful. Um, Okay, now before we get started into all of the meat and potatoes of this, I'm going to just ask if every panelist wouldn't mind introducing themselves. Um, Again, we want to encourage our attendees to put your thoughts and reactions into the chat. We want to hear your reflections, your stories. You are an integral part of this conversation. So thank you all so much for being here. And our panel members, why don't you tell us the story of how you got involved in climate change and introduce yourselves. Let's start with Sheila.
I
Oh,
think
I
we'll
thought,
start with Rob.
Rob,
yeah.
let's start with Rob.
Okay, fine. Um, Hi everyone. I just want to thank you for joining us today and really appreciate you taking your time out. So I'm a retired electrical engineer and I retired a few years ago and joined the Calgary Climate Hub. And I'm a volunteer with the Climate Hub, and there's a group within the Climate Hub called the Eco Elders for Climate Action. And we are the ones presenting this webcast today. And yeah, so I think I'll get into how I got into climate action a bit later, but I just want to say hi and I'll pass it on to Sheila.
Hi, I'm Sheila, and I too am a member of the Eco Elders for Climate Action and also a member of Seniors for Climate, which is a national organization that we will be referring to today. I'm a retired teacher and very happy to be here and inspired by everyone who's helped to put this together.
So thanks, Sheila. I'll just sort of jump in a little bit too, and tell people a bit more about me. And I'm also retired, sort of a theme here, and have lived and worked in Calgary for over 40 years. And so I'll tell you a bit more about how that's connected with my climate action work. But I I'm involved with many climate organizations like Sheila and Rob, and I'll tell you about Citizens Climate Lobby because there's many things that we can learn from each other when we share these stories. So, how about I turn this all back over to Rob so you can jump into your story about how you got involved in climate action?
Okay, next slide. Oh, sorry. Nope, previous slide. So uh, what I'm about to tell you is actually something that I experienced before I got into climate action. Quite a few years before, I was always concerned about climate change, but didn't really activate until many years later. But in the last 10 or 15 years, I know we've all seen wildfires, floods in the news. It's happening here in Alberta, like the fire in Jasper last summer. It's happening around the world. And what I'm about to tell you is a little bit of a personal experience because my house was flooded in 2013 when we had the big flood in Calgary. So basically, it was an unusual day. I remember driving to work and thinking, "Wow, it's raining really hard." It was notably different. Um, and when I got home from work, we still didn't have water in the streets, but I know my neighbors were starting to board up their windows, and one guy even came over and said, "This place is going to be underwater in a couple hours." And of course, I didn't believe him. I'm like, "No, come on." But maybe an hour later, the police started coming down the street and with their megaphones saying, "You must evacuate now," and the street was starting to fill up with water, and so I basically we had a tenant in our basement, and I started helping her bring stuff up from the basement because at that point it was starting to sink in that okay, this is happening. And as we were bringing stuff up, the backyard, the water started encroaching in the backyard, and kept getting closer and closer to the house. And at one point, I was like, "Gene, we have to go now. We're going to be underwater soon." And so finally, we had to go. And we there was more stuff to bring out of the basement, but we had no choice. We had to leave. And so I went up to a friend's place and uh, and stayed there overnight, packed a quick bag and took a few things. I wasn't sure how long I'd be gone. Um, and so the next morning, next slide. Next morning, I told everyone I'm going to go out and get coffee. Who wants coffee? And but really, what I was doing was sneaking back to the ridge above Boness
Mm.
and having a look at what was going on. And so I didn't know how bad it would be. But as soon as I get out there, I took this picture, and obviously, all the homes were flooded on our street, and it was a bit shocking. And so then I went back, but I was still thinking maybe our house is okay because it's up on a little bit higher ground than our neighbors, and maybe our basement isn't flooded, and so I was kind of in a bit of denial at that point. So next slide. So the following morning, it was really bugging me. I had to find out, you know, how was our house doing. And so I talked my friend into giving me a lift down into Boness, and I borrowed his hip waders, and I decided I was going to wade into my house. And as I was heading down the alley, the water was getting deeper and it was flowing pretty fast. And there was a fence had fallen, a chain link fence across the alley, and I realized that that was like a huge drowning hazard, and what I was doing was dangerous and stupid. And I decided, okay, I better get the hell out of here. And I turned around to go back, but the current was so strong I couldn't move against it. So I had to get by that fence, and luckily I did, and made it to my house. And this is the view from our front porch. So you can see across the street, like one of our neighbors' cars is almost completely underwater,
Mm.
and the camper was, sticking up, but everything was flooded. And of course, our basement was flooded. So I think at that point, when I opened the back door and looked down into the basement, that's when I realized, okay, yeah, I didn't get off easy. This is a big deal. So I left, and then a couple days later, they lifted the evacuation order. And next slide. So this was the what when they let us back into our homes, we started cleaning out the basements. And that the one on the left is a picture of our backyard and the debris that most of it is our tenants' stuff, but we had storage in the basement too and lost a ton of stuff. I lost all my record albums, about 400 record albums that happened to be in the basement. And then the other picture is the view from our street. So you can see this is Bow Crescent covered in mud, and all that debris is stuff people are bringing out of their homes. So it really, I was kind of in denial that it wasn't going to be that bad. And then even when I saw the water in my basement, I don't think it hit home how much work that was going to be. Like it took probably 2 years to recover. And even emotionally, it probably took months to recover from such a disaster. Um, and then the work, yeah, like you can imagine how much work it was to get rid of all that debris and then start rebuilding. So I can really relate when I see, like a flood in the news and there's cars being washed down the street and people's homes being washed away. I get it. And I know that, like the scientists say, this is as a result of climate change. These things, yes, they happened in the past, but climate change causes them to happen more frequently and more severely. And so I've actually lived through one of these things. And the point I want to make today is that, even when I was right in it, I still was in a bit of denial that I thought it wasn't going to happen to me. And then it did happen to me. And well, it wasn't going to be that bad for me, but it was that bad for me. And I think that's a lot of us, when we think about climate change, we aren't that worried because we just think it won't happen to me. It'll happen to other people. So that's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Rob, that is, I lived in Bowness as well when the floods happened. So I
Oh yeah.
completely relate to, and every picture you're showing, I was there too. So
Great.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
you so much, Rob.
Yeah.
What about Sheila? Sheila, can you tell us the story of how you got involved in climate change?
You bet. So when I think about the question of what got me started, I need to expand the question to what is getting me started, because I feel like I'm really at the beginning of the journey, even though I've been concerned for a long time. And it is a journey and it is evolving. So the danger and increasing frequency of wildfires is what has touched me personally. My parents didn't have much money, but through their incredible resourcefulness, they acquired a piece of land on Okanagan Lake in 1959, where they built and finished a family cabin in stages over the course of about 20 years, beginning in 1968, when I was 13 years old. They saved a bit of money each year and used only that money to take the next step in developing the cabin. So it took about 20 years in all. This is my paradise on earth, and it is sacred to me. I'm deeply grateful for it. Wildfires seriously threatened that landscape in August of 2021, and our family was evacuated from the area. The White Rock Lake wildfire near Kelowna came to within 2 miles south of our cabin as the crow flies. 5 days later, that same fire skirted our area and swept through a point 5 miles north of our cabin at Killiney Beach, where it destroyed about 75 homes. I was in Ontario at the time and felt totally helpless in the face of the fact that that fire could easily close in on the land where our beloved cabin sat and destroy it. There are no words to describe the depth that that loss would be for me. The experience was devastating. We were in limbo for days, not knowing what had happened. So climate change then took on a new significance for me. It touched me personally, and I began my quest regarding what to do to help slow it down. More recent experiences have driven home the fact that we are in a climate emergency and that the need to make changes is increasingly urgent. Some of you may recognize this falls, Takakau Falls. Its name is from a Cree word meaning it is magnificent. This summer, this is an area that is very dear to me, having worked there one summer during my university years in the early 70s. On a guided hike in the Yoho Valley back in 2013, I had the amazing experience of looking across the valley to Takakau Falls, which is 373 meters tall. We had gained a lot of altitude during the hike and were actually looking down on the Daly Glacier above the falls. This glacier, which feeds the falls, stretched back from above the falls and joined another expansive ice field, the Waputich Glacier. This summer, when I visited Takakau Falls, I saw this educative plaque that clearly showed that there is now a visible lake behind the top of the falls. I was shocked to my core. Only 12 years ago on my hike, there was no lake above the falls, to my knowledge. It was all ice. That is a very significant change in 12 years. Now, this plaque also compares the size of the Daly Glacier in 2020 to its size in 1892, 128 years earlier. The amount it has melted in 128 years is phenomenal. I can only wonder whether Takakau Falls will even exist 128 years from now. There was also an educative plaque that detailed how global warming is impacting the flora and fauna in the mountains. The sign reproduced here indicates that climate change is affecting the glaciers, rivers, plants, and animals in Yoho National Park. It gives 3 examples. Firstly, the warming climate means more trees are able to grow higher up above the former tree line. This shades out sun-loving trees like the white-barked pines, and it shrinks habitat for animals needing open alpine areas. So the open alpine areas are diminishing in size. Secondly, every year, plants are blooming earlier due to the increasing warmth. And this shift may mean their timing is mismatched with the insect pollinators they rely upon to reproduce. Thirdly, animals are also having to adjust how they use their habitat because of changes in when and where plants are growing. All of this current information in the Yoho Valley again brought a frightening question to my mind. What will the situation here be like in 10 years or in 20 years? What about 50 years? I worked in the Yoho Valley 50 years ago, and that doesn't seem very long ago. The changes in those short 50 years have been frighteningly significant. Our planet is in danger, and it is urgent that we join with others to take action. The good news is that there are many, many, many people across the planet who feel the same way and are taking action each day.
Thank you, Sheila. I think too, just the people attending this webinar, this is the first step in starting to do something positive towards this and taking action. So thank you so much, Sheila, for sharing that. And we'll move back to Cathy. Cathy, can you tell us a story of how you got involved in climate change? What motivates you? What do you care about? Could you share?
I certainly can. Thank you so much, Sarah. And and I have to echo your comments there that just participating in this webinar is an action. And we're going to say it many times. Every action counts. So thank you for being here. And as I told you a little bit earlier, I am retired. And in all my working years in Calgary, like over 40 years of my working years here, I worked in oil and gas. And sometimes people are surprised about when they hear that since I'm so active in climate. And what I did in oil and gas is I worked on software projects. But the other thing I spend a lot of time doing is I'm a very long-term volunteer at the Calgary Zoo Wilder Institute. And so, at the time, I don't think I really connected the dots. I didn't understand that the industry that I was working in was destroying the planet that I love. For me, I was well paid. I had good jobs, and that meant that I had lots of free time. So I could volunteer, I could support wildlife conservation. And in these pictures here, in the middle there, here I am sharing information on the burrowing owl conservation programs with some families. And I support the King Penguin Walk. I spent a lot of time in penguins, love to do that. So, like, who doesn't like that? But, like that graphic, I spent a lot of my time sitting in front of a computer working on software projects. And so, seemed good. But then I retired. It was shortly after COVID. And as a lot of us know, we had a lot of time to think during COVID, a lot of time to reflect. And so at that time, I was thinking a lot about my legacy. And I updated my will. I was working on my estate plans, and I was really thinking about it. Like, what is it that I want to leave behind? And I don't have children, but my nieces and nephews do, and they have families. So I just kept thinking about that. Like, what about the future generations? Because it kind of feels like we've made a mess of things. And do I want to just leave it at that? Like, so I thought more about my purpose. And I've really started to embrace my Métis heritage, and I've been thinking about what it means to be a good ancestor. So all these things going around in my head. And so, that's what fired me up. I didn't experience natural disasters in the same way that Sheila and Rob did, but I wanted to do more and I wanted to find a path. And so, since I've worked on projects my whole life. And so that's what this became. It became my new project. If you had to give it a title, it was How Will Cathy Make a Difference? And so what I did is I read a lot. I started reading books. And climate change has always intrigued me. And these are just a few of the books I read. Because, I read all different kinds of authors. So, like Braiding Sweetgrass, Kimmerer is an Indigenous author. And so I could connect with her stories. And Jeff Dembecki and the Petroleum Papers truly shocked me. The cover ups of climate change that the oil and gas industry has been involved in. But Saving Us by Katharine Hayhoe was just, really seemed to strike a chord with me. And, the more I read and the more I started listening to podcasts and things, I started to get it. And, I started to get angry. And, it makes me angry that the governments just want to build more pipelines, more LNG terminals, and they just don't seem to get it. It's like, don't they listen to the scientists? The scientists have been saying for years that burning fossil fuels is what's causing the earth to overheat.
Hmm.
And so, I'm just going, what am I going to channel all this energy into? So I have to say that Katharine Hayhoe is the one that resonated with me most. What Dr. Hayhoe talks about is like she explains the science in a way that's easy to understand. And, I thought she was talking to me personally because I kept holding this book going, but what can I do? What can I do? So I highly recommend that you look up Dr. Hayhoe's website, that she has a TED Talk that's great to listen to, and even sign up for her weekly newsletter. You can find it on her website. Read her book. As we've talked about taking actions, this is another one that you can do. So I'll just save my stories on the actions that I've actually taken for a little bit later in our talk here. But one of the things that I would like to challenge you to do is that I'm sure that many of our listeners here are retired. So, what have you done in your work years that maybe you can redeploy to a new passion or interest? If you want to share, please put it in the chat. We'd love to hear it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Cathy. Yes, that's what I was just going to say as well. So if you wanted to put in the chat box or in the Q&A, just share with us what have you done that you're what oh my goodness, what would you like to do in your work or that you can redeploy into a new passion or an interest, excuse me. Yeah, so I'll give everybody a second just to kind of type that in. But while people are typing that in, I mean, if and when we get something in the chat box, we'll come back to that question. But I figure, I mean, why sit in silence? I don't know if anybody else is like me, but silence is deafening to me. So I would like to move on to taking action and hear a little bit from Rob. If you could share, Rob, the stories of the actions that you have done.
Certainly. Um, so as I mentioned before, after the flood, it wasn't like I became an instant activist. I did understand that this was the kind of thing that climate change was going to bring upon us, and but I was had a busy life. I was still working. In the years that followed after rebuilding the basement, and my wife had cancer. My mother-in-law had, she ended up, it was brain cancer as well, but we didn't know what it was at the time. But we knew that she couldn't look after herself, and she moved in with us for a few years. So there was a lot of things going on in my life. And although I was concerned about climate change, I was pretty busy, and I really didn't feel like it was my responsibility to really to do anything about it. I donated to some good causes like David Suzuki Foundation or, and changed my light bulbs and did all those things that people did back then. But yeah, I would not have considered myself an activist. So what changed was, some of those life issues were past, and I was in a better place, and but I was still working and I was busy. But I watched a TED Talk with Greta Thunberg, and it just hit me. It was the understanding that these kids, this is what we were leaving them, and it was not fair. And it really hit home that I just could not do nothing anymore. And so I joined the Calgary Climate Hub. I started looking for, organizations where I could actually be more active. Through the Climate Hub, I got connected with the Eco Elders, and we started doing letter writing campaigns. There was other groups in the Climate Hub where we were advocating for the city's new climate strategy, and I got to speak before council, and so I was learning a ton of things. Um, but I kind of always had a natural affinity for nature. I loved hiking. I loved getting out camping, even to this day. And while I was becoming more involved in climate action, I really became concerned about Fairy Creek, which is an old growth forest on Vancouver Island, and they were going to start cutting down these 1,000-year-old trees, and there were these incredible protesters that were trying to stop it. Of course, they had the government and the police, and the odds were against them, and but they did manage to slow it down. Quite a bit of Fairy Creek was wiped out, but that's what happens in our world. So what I started doing is I started writing an email to John Horgan, who was the BC premier at the time, and the forestry minister, and I decided I was going to do that every day, send them an email about the benefits of trees or forests or nature. And I didn't quite make it. I probably sent over 200 emails, but I wasn't able to do it every day. But I still had a goal, and I stuck to it for a full year. And that was kind of where I built up a connection with trees and forests. And so, as part of the Climate Hub, someone had started a nature node, which is just a group of people. Well, it wasn't really a group, it was just myself and one other person at the beginning. Sandra Mills had started this group, and so I joined it. And she told me about a guy in Edmonton who was planting guerrilla planting trees, which is basically he grew seedlings in his backyard. He collected apricot seeds from a tree on his street, and he thought maybe he'd get a few seedlings, and he ended up with over 100. And so he was like, what am I going to do with all these things? Well, he just went out and planted them, and which you're not allowed to do, by the way. So I'm not advocating that you should do that, but if you wanted to, that might not be so bad. And so I was inspired by that, and I actually went out and did a little bit of guerrilla tree planting myself. And then I contacted the city and asked them if it would be okay to do that, to plant some trees in their parks. And they said, absolutely not. And one of the arguments was that those trees, if we're not looking after them, they might grow big and fall on somebody. So it's a
Mm.
safety hazard, which I thought was kind of laughable. But anyways, that was the story they gave me and said, do not guerrilla tree plant. So I'll just pass that on to you. Please don't guerrilla tree plant. Although if you want to, that's kind of up to you.
We're
So
neither advocating for it nor dismissing it.
exactly. Yeah. So the next thing I did was now that I was in touch with the city and the urban forestry department, um, I pitched to them the idea of maybe doing a community tree planting event. And I'd read about this thing called the Miyawaki method, which was a method of planting mini forests. And as it turned out, they had a pilot program on the go to plant 5 mini forests around Calgary. And I was working with them to try and do one near Bowness. And that actually fell through, but it led to some conversations with people at the Climate Hub. And the director at the time said, "Hey, we need to apply for a grant. This is a fantastic idea. We're going to plant some mini forests." And we ended up getting the grant. And for the last 2.5 years, we've been planting these tiny forests around Calgary. So that picture that you see there is near the Genesis Center in the Northeast. We're also trying to focus on the Northeast, although we haven't done all our forests in the Northeast. But that is our goal is to get more of these in Northeast and Southeast. It's basically any communities where they don't have a lot of trees right now. We want to help plant these mini forests and get the communities out doing it because it's such a positive event. Like everybody comes out, they're all chattering and having fun, and it's just a wonderful day. So this is actually the Calgary Center for Spiritual Living. So that was our very first forest. It's now 2 years old. I took that picture back in June, so it was about just over a year old at the time. And as you can see, we're planting seedlings that are probably this big, like 4 or 5 inches tall. And in just over a year, look at the size of those plants. Like there's trees, there's shrubs, there's ground cover, and the people at CSL are just over the moon about this forest because it's been so successful. Next slide. And this is another one that I actually reached out to the Bowness Community Association and we planted a tiny forest next to their building. It's actually a medicine wheel design. So we have a path through the middle and there's 4 quadrants and we've planted types of plants that have either the leaves are a certain color or maybe they have seeds or um, anyway, we basically tried to match up our plants with the colors of the quadrants of the medicine wheel. And this particular photo is Elder Clarence Wolfleg. He came out and he did a naming ceremony. So he gave our tiny forest a name, which is Poughkeepsie, which means tiny, beautiful place in Blackfoot. And so he gives this great ceremony where he talks about these plants and trees being our children, and it's our responsibility to look after them and make sure they grow old and healthy. And so that's a big part of what our initiative's all about as well. It's like sharing that Indigenous knowledge and yeah, and integrating that into our community events.
Ah,
I think that is my last slide.
excellent. Thank you so much, Rob. Yeah, that was amazing. I know exactly where this is, and I've seen it a dozen times. So
Yeah, it's
that's
doing so
beautiful.
well, right? It's like,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to quickly just mention in the chat. So we had Karen type in the chat box and say, "Hi, I'm Karen Chow, a retired chemical engineer and currently the treasurer of Calgary Climate Hub. And the Eco Elders are a part of their hub." And she gave a website. So anybody that wants to go in and just copy and paste that website, go and have a quick look at that website there. And we'll move on because we've got about 20 minutes left for this session. So I don't want to breeze through things, but if it comes to a time where we have to end it, we can always do a part two if everybody's willing to. So don't feel like you have to rush through, but I'm going to give it over to Sheila.
So, as I've said, I really am a newbie in terms of being active, and it's really a privilege for me to be on this panel alongside heavyweights like Cathy and Rob. And I just feel that I'm surrounded by mentors, um, them and others in the eco elders. So that's really helping to incubate me and help me move along. So I want to share my experience as a newbie, hoping that it might encourage some of you who might find yourselves in the same position as me. You might be wondering, how to start. So my main message is to know and be certain that every action counts, no matter how small. I began helping with climate rallies in Calgary. This one was on June 28th, 2023, when the tagline was Canada is on fire. There were wildfires across Canada then, and that has actually become the norm now. We were promoting a just transition to green energy. So this was a coordinated cross-Canada action promoted by a group called 350.org, a wonderful organization that invites coordinated actions across Canada and also across the planet, and provides much support, including digital tools, posters, and tips regarding interacting with the media. Apart from being part of rallies, another very small action that I chose this past summer happened on a holiday in Newfoundland, beautiful Newfoundland, during my casual chats with several strangers. Often the topic of the wildfires that were raging at that time in Newfoundland and elsewhere in Canada came up in our conversations. The other person and I would both express sadness about how the situation and its drastic impacts were affecting so many good people and their homes. We'd both shake our heads, but every time I had this conversation, I very intentionally added, we have to wean ourselves off fossil fuels. For me, I'm not one to ruffle feathers, and this small statement took courage because I did not know how the other person would react. I said it anyway. In reflecting on this, I think it makes a small difference. You never know what that might lead that person to think about or explore. I have to believe that every difference, however small, counts. We're all in this together. Many of you in attendance at this webinar are members of Unison. In this way, you are connected to people and you have opportunities to learn about so many topics and issues. This in itself is action. It's making a difference in your life and likely in others' lives already. So I encourage you to recognize the positives of any choices you have made. Your life is better for those choices. Perhaps climate action is one of your choices, or perhaps it is a new choice you wish to make. Just be certain that every small action counts. Identifying a root cause of the climate emergency in an everyday conversation is an action. Just expressing concern about climate change is an action. Writing a letter, signing a petition, even asking a question, those are all actions. Telling your story is an action. Contributing to this chat and telling us about your experience is an action. Advocating for meaningful climate action on the part of our governments is a very powerful action. Any engagement can potentially have a ripple effect on the people around you and on the world. And you'll meet others along the way who will encourage you. You'll form new relationships, and it just grows. It's an evolving journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sheila. I'm going to give it over to Cathy now, but while Cathy is talking, I encourage our attendees here today to think about the climate actions that you've taken personally. Or if you're not sure where to start, maybe just type in the chat box and ask. We've got, a panel of people that are here that are wonderful to discuss this. So Karen also typed in the chat box. She's another link there to our Tiny Forest Guidebook. Rob is a huge part of this project being so successful. So everybody, you're listening and you want to check some stuff out, go into the chat box there, copy and paste that link into your browser and have a look. And I'm going to go ahead and give it over to Cathy.
Well, thank you, Sarah. And I have many stories to share. As you can tell, we all like to talk, but I'm going to keep these as short as I can. And so I've done some actions as an individual. I just want to share a few of them. Is that I decided to replace my old gas furnace with a hybrid system. So that picture, that first one is a heat pump. So yes, heat pumps do work in Alberta. And I also, I'm a big user of transit. So that is another way I can do things. And when it was time to replace my old car, I decided to get an EV. And so that's a 2021 Chevy Bolt, which I bought used. So, you know, it's a little bit cheaper. And I am saving money and helping the planet. Like, what a win. And I had to share a picture of some of the flowers in my garden. Those are cinquefoil because I'm now putting native plants in there because it attracts native bees. And that just helps my soul. But I'm joining climate groups because, you know, as Dr. Hayhoe said, she's my hero, is that we have to stop being such an individual and be part of a group because we can make more impact and take actions together. So here's just some of the actions I've been doing as a group. So Dr. Hayhoe talked about Citizens Climate Lobby, and that's a group that I've joined. And there's a picture of some of the Calgary chapter we're tabling at an event, and you know, I've done many other things with CCL. I've been started letter writing. They trained me up, and I've had many letters published. You can too. And the other thing that we're very big on is lobbying our politicians in Ottawa. Like it's in our name. So I just came back from a conference in Lobby Days where I participated in lobby meetings with 3 elected representatives. I just think it is so important that they hear our voices. And you might think that, oh, that's kind of scary. I don't know if I could really do that. But, you know, I was not alone. I was trained, I was supported, I was educated. And, you know, it feels, you know, it's one of those things that's a little bit scary, but it felt really good to get in there and talk to our politicians. So that's one of the things that, you know, I find really powerful. And with the Climate Hub, the Eco Elders group has been active in other ways. Up there in the corner is a flash mob that we did. And you know, that was the most fun I've had in a really long time. Like we all, you know, you'd think how hard can it be to learn a set of steps that lasts like 30 seconds and repeat it for a minute. But we did it. We did it. And so sometimes you can have fun in these groups. And in the center picture is we facilitated a session right at the Kirby Center, at the Unison Kirby Center, where we had climate conversations. So these are the facilitators, and you know, again, just having fun in groups is a great way to go. It makes you feel good. You become part of a community, and I truly believe it makes an impact. So how can you not want to do more of that? So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, you know what, Kathy, when you guys love what you do too, it shows. So it makes us want to be involved. So it doesn't feel like work. And what do they say? When you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life, right?
Mhm.
I love that. Can I ask the panelists now, anybody who wants to answer, what can older adults do to take action on climate change, and why are older adults such a powerful group when it comes to this?
Okay, I'd like to start with that. As a senior, I realize that I'm at a point in my life where I finally have time to become involved. My crunch years of raising a family and working as a teacher, those are all behind me now. And I'm experiencing some freedom in being able to choose how I spend my time. Now is my time. This is an advantage and it's a privilege. In whatever number of days or years that I have left, I want to devote a good amount of time to working for needed changes. I really feel compelled to act, especially when I am in the presence of a child or a baby. Truly, when I'm with one of those, I always wonder, what will the world, the planet, like when they grow up? Will there be fresh air? Will there be enough clean drinking water? Will there be many birds? Will they see rivers in our Rockies? not to mention the living conditions of those less fortunate in faraway lands that have been ravaged by war. So, yes, we seniors are unique. We have a significant perspective. We've lived a good number of years. We have a deep sense of how precious life on this planet is because we have seen significant changes as time has elapsed. We also have a deep sense that a lifetime goes by quickly and that we cannot put off what needs to be done. There is a sense of urgency, great urgency. We must act now. The power and energy of seniors has barely been harnessed, but a national group that was formed only last year has as its goal to harness the wisdom, concern, and energy of seniors across Canada. This group is called Seniors for Climate, and we invite you to visit their amazing website. The logo that you see accompanying the title of the group is the logo that was used last October, a year ago, at the first national Cross Canada event. And the tagline was, "Later is too late." It's a powerful image of an older person, a woman, handing over the world to a child. And so we are very cognizant, as Cathy and Rob have both said, about what is it we're handing over. It's our watch, and we want to do something. So we invite you to look at that website as well as the Eco Elders for Climate Action, which is part of the Calgary Climate Hub.
Thank you so much, Sheila. I do love that picture. It's so powerful. And it's true. They say a picture speaks 1,000 words. Cathy, do you have anything you want to add to this?
I sure can. Thank you, Sarah. The as Sheila's reminded us, like seniors are a very powerful group, and like there's 10 million of us in Canada, and we do vote. So we have a lifetime of experience. We have, many of you have children and grandchildren, and I know that like Rob and Sheila and I have shared our stories, but they're just our three stories. Like each one of you is unique. Like you're your own person. And so, your story can be completely different. And that is perfect. It's really just perfect. But if maybe you're really engaged and you just want to continue your journey, that's wonderful. But if you're not sure where to start, what I would suggest to you is, like start with your heart. Like, what is it that you truly love? Because that is what you can get passionate about. And then find people that have your shared values, your interests, because odds are there's a lot more of you out there and you can connect. And we all have so many different skills, and the world needs everything. Like, do you like to talk? Do you like art? Do you like music? Do you like fundraising, organizing? Like all of those things. Maybe you don't like any of those things, but you like something else. It's just find your own way. And so when we did our climate conversations in Unison, we prepared a resource called Resources for a More Livable World. And maybe there, Sophie or Karen, you could share that in the chat, because what we found is that like climate is compared or is connected to everything. And there are so many good groups in Canada, US, well, municipal organizations, national, local. And so we prepared a list of them because maybe there's one in there that you can reach out to or learn from. And so even that is an action. So just know again that every action counts. And so once again, we just wanted to reach out to you and thank you so much, Karen, for sharing all of the resources that you're sharing. But if you have stories you would like to share, or if you're thinking, what can I do after this webinar to take action? Like maybe you can just share what you learned with somebody else. tell them that if they didn't attend today, that the video will be posted and they can look at it. But we really like you to join the conversation and hear what you want to do, because it's about all of us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kathy. I am just noting in the chat box as well. So Eva has typed in and said, I'm an eco elder. I've added solar panels on our house. I bought a used plug-in hybrid car, and this has saved me a lot of money. And when it was time to replace our hot water heater at the house, we chose the heat pump electric type. So that's, I think, just a awesome start to this, right, Kathy?
It sure is. I know. All these actions count. And thanks for sharing them, because that's part of it too. Because there's a lot of people don't know. They think these things don't work here in Alberta, and they sure do.
Hmm. And strength comes in numbers. When I see, that person doing it, I think, oh, maybe I want to do it. And yeah, I really I love that people are sharing something about what they've done, right? So if anybody else in the audience there, we've got a few minutes left. Go ahead and type in the chat box anything that you're doing or you want to do, or if you have any questions for our panelists today. It is such an important topic that we really don't know about. And so if we don't know and we're ignorant to it, we can't take action. And the picture of the babies really made me uh, like think about, yeah, what are we handing over to them, right? Like my children, my grandchildren, what are they going to live like? So we really do have to be proactive in this. Um, and Karen also stated in the chat box there, says, by the way, older adults are welcome to participate in any of the efforts at the Calgary Climate Hub. So if you need any information on that, or we leave this meeting and you think, oh, I forgot to get an email or the information, I'm going to put my email in the chat box, and you guys can always reach out to me and I can put you in contact with Karen, with Robert, any of the above, any of our panelists. So feel free to reach out to me after this is over if you'd like more information. All
So we
right.
would like to offer a closing thought. Pictured here is the exquisite Cathedral Mountain in the Yoho Valley. I speak for Cathy, Rob, and myself when I say that the magnificence of our natural world feeds our spirits. This beauty inspires us to want desperately to preserve our natural world for all children and for future generations, to the seventh generation and beyond, as our Indigenous brothers and sisters invite us to believe. As Cathy said in her personal land reflection at the beginning of this webinar, we can honor the land by taking action. We can turn from anxiety to action. We acknowledge that we have the opportunity now to be good ancestors to future generations and to all beings on our amazing planet. And as the National Seniors for Climate organization reminds us, later is too late.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Sophie, for the slide deck. You guys were amazing. This was so wonderful to host. I've learned so much, and I hope all our attendees have also learned a lot. You guys, this has been such a pleasure to host this. So thank you all so much for donating your time. And remember, everybody out there, one by one, we can individually, it feels like we're doing little, but together it makes big differences. So please feel free to reach out to me to be in touch with any of these lovely panelists. Karen also, I put her in that chat box there, treasurer at calgaryclimatehub.ca. And thank you all again for being here with me today. And don't forget, come on back next week. We're going to do fall prevention strategies for safe living. So remember, if you weren't here, or if your friend wasn't here live, you can watch us. This is recorded. We're going to put it on our YouTube account, and like that subscribe button, hit that like button, and come on back and join us live or watch us on YouTube. Thank you all again so much. I am going to give a heart because this is what I'm doing lately at the end of my sessions. I'm giving big hearts. So Thank you
Wonderful.
all
Sarah.
so much, you guys. We'll see you
Thank you.
hopefully soon. And everybody take care and stay green, folks. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.